And we're here with Arthur Menard, the founder of LAMS. Arthur, welcome to the Optimal Performance Podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Glad to be here.
So I am wearing a pair of underwear that some might say are magic. Others might say they're just good science, woven tightly with silver strands of thread that protect my important bits from radio waves. Thank you very much for sending those to me. I have so many questions, but can you please tell us what is the origin story of LAMS? How is it that you got into the business of making garments that protect people from EMFs?
It all started at dinner, actually. And so we were having dinner with a bunch of friends, and we all took out our cell phones and put it on the table face down. And that prompted a discussion, and the topic of the discussion was, we're idiots. We're idiots because it's been years that we've been hearing about the fact that we shouldn't be putting our cell phone in our pocket, that this is dangerous for our health, for our cancer reasons, infertility reasons, a bunch of things that none of us around the table wanted, but we were all carrying our cell phone in our pocket all day, but also we were surrounding ourselves with a lot of radiation emitting devices, trackers, connected homes, smart bubbles, Alexa, everything you want, cars, your Wi-Fi. Essentially, we're bathing in radiation all day. So during that discussion, we started looking at what are the studies around it. And the first thing that we found out was that the World Health Organization was categorizing cell phone radiation or wireless radiation as a class 2B human carcinogen, which is the same as cars' exhaust fumes. And to me, that was the moment where I was like, holy moly, and I apologize for swearing on your podcast, but at least that's out of the way within the first 2 minutes. I'm not willing to be in a room. If right now a car was right next to me with its engine on, I would not be staying here. And nevertheless, I'm in a room where I'm soaking in radiation right now. So that's the moment, and I mean, I'm talking about the room, I'm carrying my cell phone in my pocket, I'm doing all the things, which essentially is the equivalent of having several cars running in my apartment. And I decided on that night that I was not willing to take this risk. I was not willing to assume the health consequences of this much exposure, and that I needed to do something to protect myself and help people like me who care about their health protecting themselves.
Yeah. That's, I mean, the way to activate on that. I mean, but lots of us have good ideas, but not all of us have been able to execute and create products that are in demand. Tell us about the technology. Let's cut the charade. I gotta be honest with everybody. So we recorded this episode already, and
You said it.
I didn't want to oh really, pretend like I haven't heard this before, because I have. We had a really amazing 90-minute conversation that the file got corrupt, so we're starting from scratch. But that just means that this is going to be really, really focused and really poignant, because I know the questions to ask that I think are the most fascinating. One of which is this technology. I would love to rehear for everyone else for the first time how this technology works, how it's effective, and what sort of studies support the fact that the underwear that I'm wearing is literally blocking out 99.7 to 99.9% of all EMFs and all harmful radio waves from getting to my most important bits. Where does this come from?
Yeah, right before I jump into the answers, let's cut the charade for real. The reason the file got corrupted is because Sean got half naked on the podcast first time, showing his pair of underwear to everyone, and then running around the house, putting it around his Wi-Fi router. Jokes aside, so the way the technology works is, I'll probably keep on telling the story of how we got started, actually. So same night, I decide that I'm gonna try and scratch my own itch and fix this problem for myself. And so I started looking with an engineering friend of mine, real inventor, how we could protect ourselves from radiation. What were the physical mechanisms that we could use that are out there? And what we found out is that spacesuits are radiation blocking, because if you're an astronaut and you're in space, on a 6 month journey, you'll be exposed to about 4,000 chest x-rays during this one 6 month trip. So they've got an inbuilt mechanism that protects the astronaut from the harmful effect of those radiation. And we essentially took the same physical principle, which is that radio waves, or EMFs, cannot penetrate a grid of conductive material where the size of the holes are smaller than the wavelength of the radiation. That's a mouthful, so just picture an elephant trying to get through a fence that would be just your regular garden fence. There is no chance. And that's essentially the same mechanism, except that the elephant can trim the fence. In our case, the radiation is not as strong. So we use this principle, this physical principle, which is called electromagnetic shielding. A cell phone wave is essentially an electromagnetic wave. It's got one electric current and one magnetic current. And so we're using this electromagnetic shielding mechanism by essentially weaving silver fibers inside of the fabric of our garments in order to put this mesh of conductive silver all around the garment. And that creates an enclosure inside the garment, so essentially your body, which is completely shielded off. 99.9% shielded off from wireless radiation.
So the product itself, I'll spare everybody and not pull my pants down and show the underwear that I'm wearing. You can go to getlambs.com and see it for yourself. You don't have to see it on me, but and the result is this material that does look a little bit different from like a standard like cotton material. On the outside it just looks like a normal garment, and on the inside it has this almost sort of like iridescent sort of sheen. You can kind of tell that the material on the inside is a little bit different, but you don't feel it. You don't feel like you're wearing chainmail, but essentially like the mesh of this silver pattern is effective at keeping it out. You mentioned a Faraday cage. And you mentioned the importance of having it wrap all the way around, so that a patch. So like if I was wearing normal underwear and then I got like a patch of this material and put it over just the area in which my bits are, that would not suffice. Can you tell us a little bit about how that science works, so that we have a clear picture of how that is effective?
Yeah, so if you were just to take a patch, the issue that you have is that you're not creating a completely closed up enclosure, essentially. And so the patch itself is conductive material, meaning it will attract the radiation per se, but then won't be in a completely closed off enclosure that will prevent the radiation from essentially getting through around this patch in question. So if you look at another example would be your microwave. If you look at the door of your microwave today, you'll see that there is an aluminum grid inside the door and not just a glass door. And that's because your microwave is emitting the same radiation as your cell phone. And the device is built in a way that you've got conductive metal in all the walls of your microwave except the door, and that's why you've got this mesh of aluminum. So if you're creating a garment where you're using electromagnetic shielding as a principle, then you have to have your mesh of silver or whatever conductive material you're using all around the garment so that it creates this closed up enclosure.
Right. And silver. Why silver and not copper or aluminum or something like that? and part two to that is what other materials are you using in addition to this to the fine silver mesh?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Looks like you've asked this one before.
It's almost like I've asked it yesterday.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. So silver actually has amazing properties. It's one of the only materials out there which is completely hypoallergenic, meaning no one in the world is allergic to silver, contrary to copper, for instance. The second property of silver that was super interesting for us is that silver is antibacterial. So that also means that silver is anti-odor, which helps keep you fresh all day, essentially. And then I guess the last part was the feeling of the touch. When silver, we've been able to reproduce something that is in between cotton and silk in terms of feeling right now on the silver side of the fabric. And that was super important. We definitely could not get to this level with aluminum. We haven't tried copper because of the allergies that people can have. So we've tried a few, and silver was the nicest one in terms of feel, was antimicrobial, anti-odor, etc. And it's also very, very conductive. So it also enabled us to create something that was very efficient in terms of blocking. And then as to part two of the question, so we're using silver in combination with modal, and modal is a fabric that comes from beechwood originally and created using bioprocesses that are very much eco-friendly. And that was super important for us as well, because we believe that if companies today don't take responsibility when it comes to protecting the planet and fighting climate change altogether, then we're screwed. And so we're trying as much as we can to be responsible in our chain of production, as well as trying to give back. And we're giving a portion of our income as a company to fighting off climate change. We haven't picked the charity just yet, so if you know a good one, we're super open, email me. But that's going to be very important for us as well. We're starting this quarter, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's the first time, actually second time, but first time published that I'm talking about this publicly, because it's been something that we've been itching to do for a long, long time. And, at the beginning, like maybe a lot of companies were like, all right, well, let's do this when we're bigger, when we get more revenues. And right now, let's just focus on creating amazing products and growing and making sure that our clients love it. And then at some stage, we sat down around the table and we're like, look, we're going to create amazing products no matter what. What prevents us right now from already giving a certain percentage of our sales towards this? Because if we don't do it now, we're never going to consider that we're big enough to do it.
Yeah.
So we're doing it, and that's it. And
that's cool.
If every company in the world were doing the same thing, we'd be living in a very different world right now, and that would be a much more amazing world, I think. Yeah. But anyways, that's our personal value.
Yeah. That's a big deal. I mean, that makes the purchase that much easier. If you know that a portion of your purchase is actually going to go back to sustainability to help protect the planet, that's a big deal. I want to stick on modal a little further because when I first heard about modal, I was confused. I'd never heard. So it's beechwood, MODAL. What are the other uses of modal? What other products or garments or whatever use modal for, just so people have a reference point?
Yeah, so modal has been used. I think it's pretty recent actually that companies started using modal for apparel, but it's got interesting properties. First of all, it's insanely soft. There's really a wow factor. If you were to touch pure modal, you really just want to bury your face into it. That's insanely comfortable. So that was point number one. We actually just started creating our fabric with modal instead of cotton, and getting this real wow effect. So sorry, Sean, you're wearing cotton right now. but I'll make sure to send you a new generation soon. The second factor of modal is that it's moisture wicking, meaning that it's kind of soaking up sweat and helping it evaporate faster. So it's great for sports garments, mainly because it's going to help keeping you drier. And the last bit is that modal is wrinkle-free or wrinkle-less. So you're going to have less ironing to do when wearing it. So it's really a new generation fabric that is purely amazing, and we combine it with our technology. We're able to create a fabric that is super soft, wrinkle-free, moisture-wicking, antibacterial, radiation-proof. We're pretty stoked actually at the result that we created. To give you a reference point, when we started thinking about the product, we're like, can we just create put aluminum between two layers of cotton and get the effect that we're trying to do? Going from this idea to what we have right now is something we're really proud of, actually.
That's cool. I want to talk a little bit about, everybody that listens to this knows that EMFs are harmful. If you've been listening to, if you're paying attention and you're an informed consumer, certainly if you're listening to the OPP, you understand the harmful effects of EMFs and radiation. So for people who have used your products that have worn the first generation, which has cotton, what are some of the responses that you've gotten? I mean, are there measurable testimonials for people that were like, yeah, I used to have, because I know there's beanies. Beanies are one of the product offerings that you guys have. And if you haven't noticed the Instagram ads for the Lamb's beanie, you will. Now you'll notice it. Now that it's been mentioned, you'll definitely see it, and you'll also see the ad for the red undies. But I'd love to hear what people say about it. Like, is this the type of thing where they notice that they have less headaches? Do they notice that that they feel more fertile? Is there some measurable sort of response? Like, do we have any data or qualitative anecdotes for people's responses to wearing this for any prolonged period of time?
Yeah, we do, actually. Just before I get into this, my little disclaimer statement that we're not intended to treat or diagnose any disease or prevent any disease, and statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, yada, yada, yada. So now that we get this out of the way, we've had actually people who did a sperm count test before starting wearing LAMs, and then went back to the fertility clinic a month or two later and had their sperm tested again. And the result has been essentially doubling their sperm count, which is crazy. It's far from being enough data that we can actually confidently say that LAMS is the reason why. There is a bunch of factors that can impact your sperm count, and actually even from one measurement to another, you can have a lot of variability, which is time of the day, frequency of intercourse, like a lot of things can play into it. But that was interesting. That was an interesting result, which is in line with the studies that are out there in terms of impact that cell phone radiation can have both on your sperm production and your sperm quality. And we've also, and this is not published by us just yet, but we've started working with a scientist in order to measure the impact of LAMs on your immune system. If we're getting into the biology behind the issue with cell phone radiation, what's been documented from a cellular standpoint is that EMF being magnetic frequencies, so polarized waves, when coming into contact with your cell membranes, your cell's membranes, your cells are taking this as an external aggression and trigger your automatic immune response system, which essentially means that your body is getting from a rest mode to a flight mode. And you want your body to stay in rest mode as much as possible, because that's where every biological mechanism of your body is performing normally. Whereas flight mode is when you're fighting off an aggression. It's not a state that you want to be staying in. And so what we've documented so far with a limited number of people during our pre-study is that when you're exposed to cell phone radiation, your body gets into stress mode. And then when we're covering you with LEMS, within 10 minutes, it goes back into rest mode. And you can then be exposed to as much radiation as you want from your cell phone or anything else. As long as you're wearing LEMS, your body stays in rest mode. So we've actually never talked about this before, because we're still in the process of getting this study completely done. These are the early results that we got. But they're super encouraging, because potentially tomorrow, what we're hoping to be able to do is to show that we're having an impact today on your health and not just a protection mechanism. Again, very, very early, far too early to say anything around this. And then, man, we've got hundreds of testimonies from people saying that they're just more confident. They've got the peace of mind of knowing that they can walk around with their cell phone without potentially impacting their ability to become a father, or without potentially waking up someday with testicular cancer and wondering if that might have been avoided by doing something about it. And yeah, like what we like to, I don't think that comes from us, actually. It's probably one of our clients who sent this to us in an email, but we like to compare LEMS with wearing a seatbelt. You know, like, it doesn't cost much to do it when you're getting in your car, and just like in your regular day, you're probably wearing underwear, you're probably wearing t-shirts, you might be wearing a beanie, whatever you're wearing. It's not a big effort to actually switch over to LEMS and know that if something were to happen, know that you're essentially offsetting some of this potential risk that is hovering above you.
Yeah. It does provide peace of mind. I mean, I have a laptop, and sometimes I actually do put it on my lap. I like to sit in front of my red light therapy light in the morning time, drink my coffee, and then put the soles of my feet up to my red light. And when I put my soles of my feet up to my red light, I actually do put the computer on my lap and work. And knowing that there is a barrier there, that I am protecting my business when I'm doing that, it is confident. You know, I think about the different sort of areas that we really, really want to protect, right? For the genitals, for the men and the women who want to protect their genitals, the underwear makes sense. I think about the brain and the heart as well, as far as like areas that we really want to make sure are protected from EMF. You know, as far as, I mean, I don't know. Should I be shielding my kneecaps and my ankles and the tops of my hands from EMFs? Like, maybe I should. I don't really know, but I do know that for those more sensitive areas that really do need that protection, it makes sense. Can you speak to the sort of like areas and regions of the body that really need to be protected and how that works?
Yeah, totally. So essentially, radiation, the amount of exposure to radiation that you're experiencing is decreases by the square of the distance that you have between yourself and the device emitting the radiation. What it means is, if you've got your cell phone here or here, I'm not twice as close. I am twice as close, but I'm getting an exponentially more important amount of radiation. So what we've tried to do with LEMS is protecting the organs that are the most exposed to those radiation, either because they're usually very close to a source, so your privates or your brain, and or very don't have a lot of natural protection. So if I were to take your stomach, it's lodged with your belly, with potentially some fat and like there's a lot in between. Whereas your brain is right there, your cherries are not protected by much either. So that's why we started by protecting those areas. The T-shirt is protecting the heart, but also a bunch of glands that are on your upper torso as well, which can be impacted by, especially when it comes to your immune response. And most of your organs, vital organs, are in this area as well. And then, look, man, one of the things that we've tried to do as well with lamps is create an easy enough solution. No change of habits, no change of style. We're really trying to make it easy for people to make the switch and protect themselves. If it's about like, there is another solution, which is stop carrying yourself in your pocket, you know? There is another solution as well, which is go live in the woods. And at some stage, there is only so much that you want to do in order to protect yourself. And that's the reason why we still live in cities when there is an amount of pollution that is obviously taking a toll on our health in the long term. But we've decided that we were not willing to go live in cabins in the woods and that we were willing to take the risk. And so for lambs, you're probably never going to see us come up with a complete suit that is going to shield 100% of your body, because we don't want to be walking around in suits like this, and we want to make it easy for people to just make the switch. And that's why we've worked very, very hard on making the products very comfortable, on making them look good on you, and that's why we focused as well on basics at the beginning, so that your style doesn't impact what you can wear or not. You can wear the Lambs t-shirt underneath a shirt if that's what you want to be wearing as an undershirt. You can be wearing anything above your underwear. No one will ever question your style of when you're wearing Lambs. So that was very important for us as well. One, protect the organs that are most exposed, but B, protect them in a way that means no change of habits and no change of style for you.
Yeah. I want to quickly and abruptly transition to the thing that really kind of blew my mind the most in our conversation, what was yesterday, the day before, which is the fact that you have tested Wi-Fi routers wrapped in the garments, and the fact that if you actually wrap a garment effectively around a Wi-Fi router, it will effectively turn off the Wi-Fi to the home. Can you tell us about that process? Because that, for me, for any consumer, that is like, okay, does this actually work? If this works, if this is really protecting me, then and nothing's getting through it, I should be able to like wrap it around my router, and then the signal is gone. Can you talk to that? Because that was really impressive to me.
Yeah, and I'm actually gonna take the liberty of modifying your question and answer as to how we're testing, how we've been testing and what we've done in order to show that our technology works. Because, as you said, there are actually out there a lot of products that claim to be protecting you from radiation, like cases, stickers that you would put on your phone. Like, there are a bunch of products out there that claim the same thing, and turns out they do not work. The FCC actually issued a statement saying that those stickers or phone cases or whatever, they do not only not prevent you from getting exposed to radiation, but usually they actually increase the amount of radiation that you're exposed to, simply because the reason why radiation exists is because your cell phone is communicating with the antenna using wireless radiation. That's how you're getting signal. That's why you have internet. So anything that talks through the internet or through Bluetooth, it's emitting radiation. That's why that tracker here is emitting radiation when it's not in airplane mode, because it's communicating with my phone, the number of steps, and so on. That's why your Wi-Fi router is emitting radiation, because it's communicating with your computer, which is emitting radiation as well. So if we were to effectively shield a cell phone from radiation by wrapping it in our fabric, for instance, we would kill off the internet connection and the cellular connection as well, or at least reduce it by 99.9%, which is essentially how the process works. And so a couple of things that we did in order to show this, we created a video where we put an egg in a regular underwear and then an egg in a lamb's underwear, and we've put those two eggs wrapped in their respective underwears in microwaves. And so you can find the video by searching online lamb's egg radiation. I don't know. We can probably put it in the show notes. But what you see in the end is essentially the egg in the regular underwear bursts, whereas the lamb in the lamb's underwear is perfectly intact. But aside from those fun videos and the fact that, if we were to wrap a Wi-Fi router in our fabric and tightly wrap it, it would reduce by 1,000 the strength of your Wi-Fi, so probably you're not able to see it anymore, or you've got a very powerful router. Aside from this, we're testing and certifying all of our products in real life circumstances, meaning that we use a human phantom which has the same physical, chemical, and electrical properties as a human body. So we're testing all of this in top military-grade laboratories in the US and in Europe. And those tests are available on our website. This is super important for us to help build this credibility and transparency with our clients. And the last thing that people can do if they wanted to try at home, either they could buy a radiation detection device, but a good one. The $20 one that you will find on Amazon won't work. You need to go to like models that are around $200 to really get the quality that you would be looking for. I can provide Sean with a few names if need be. And the other thing is, if you have an Android device, there is an app out there called ElectroSmart, which measures the amount of radiation that is surrounding you, and it has a tab in there which is protect yourself, and we've partnered with them because they recommend lamps, so that you can try the efficiency of your lamp by putting your cell phone inside of the with the app running inside of the lamp product that you have, and it will give you the percentage of reduction that the government provides you with.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, the fact, when we did this before, I said, okay, well, but wait, if there's silver in the garment and the garment goes into the microwave and there's an egg wrapped, like, don't the underwear like catch on fire? Because we've all seen that before, that you put metal in the microwave and it explodes. And you said that, yes, in fact, that did happen.
Yeah, you want the behind the scenes again?
Yeah, we gotta know, because that's how that's how my brain works. I think that everybody's like, wait a minute, you put silver, you wrapped an egg in a silver garment, and then tell them what happened. It's funny.
Sparks, a lot of sparks, and we closely avoided a fire in the office, actually. So do not do this at home. What we did for the video is, in regards to both garments, whether the lamb's one or the regular garment, we soaked them in water first, then dried them a little, but there was still enough water to prevent the creation of sparks. So we did this on both garments. That worked, but I would definitely not advise putting your lamb's products in any microwave. That is not safe. We're idiots as well, as being probably good creators. Do not do this at home.
Yeah, please don't do that. Please don't put this in the microwave. Another question. For people, again, for people listening, they understand, they can wrap their brain around this technology, even if this is the first time they've ever heard of a garment that includes silver threads. even if they've never heard it before, they can kind of wrap their brain around like the elephant going through a fence analogy. What do the haters say? What do the skeptics say? What do the YouTube trolls say? Like, how do people try to pick this apart and say, oh, that this doesn't work, or this is make believe, and it's gonna come up your leg. It's still gonna find its way to your genitals, even if you're wearing the underwear. Like, I'm sure that there's lots of people that are trying to call bullshit on this. What do they say, and what are your responses?
Oh yeah, we've had a lot of this actually. So it's interesting that you asked the question. We're getting less and less actually, and probably we're doing a better job, or people are becoming more educated around the issue as well. But we've had two main things, and I'll touch on each of them. The first one is the wireless industry has done an amazing job at saying that there was no issue, despite the research that is overwhelmingly shows an adverse health effect of EMF radiation. But
I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I want to speak to that point really quickly. Isn't it true that the original cell phone safety studies are something like 25 years old, and the strength of the signal was like the recommended daily dose, a healthy dose, was like 5 minutes of cell phone exposure, and the signal? I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry to throw a monkey wrench, but I remember reading just recently that the actual like recommended healthy daily dose is based on research that was super inefficient and like 25 years old, where the signal was way weaker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I don't know if the signal was weaker or not back then. What I do know though is how the maximum dose was created, which is it was created in the 90s or even the late 80s, and back then the use was you're gonna have 2 phone calls per week, which are going to be 3 minutes each, and you're going to put your cell phone at a 1 to 3 inch spacer between you and your brain. And to date, that's how cell phones are supposed to be tested, which is with a spacer. And interestingly, if you were to test your cell phone, which the Chicago Tribune did actually, in a pocket or with the same distance that you would have if you're in your pocket or if you're placing a call, then you're way above this limit, which is already not necessarily adequate with regards to the amount of exposure that we actually have today from the fact that we have our smartphone with us all the time, and that we have a bunch of devices emitting radiation around us as well, and that we're essentially soaking in radiation all day. So this limit is already kind of outdated in the first place, but it's also actually, according to the test of the Chicago Tribune, we're already above this by the fact of putting yourself in your pocket. And even so, the Chicago Tribune, you can research this, Chicago Tribune investigation smartphone, and what they found is that when they test the smartphones of some of the world's biggest manufacturers in the same conditions that they're supposed to be testing them, most of them were exceeding the safety limit by 3-4 times. So there is currently a class action lawsuit actually against Apple and against Samsung for misrepresenting the safety of their devices. But yeah, what the industry has been doing a lot, and what the media have been saying as well, is, well, cell phone radiation are non-ionizing radiation, and therefore it doesn't cause cancer just like ionizing radiation do. So ionizing radiation, to make it simple, it's Chernobyl. It's your nuclear, it's an A-bomb. And that's true. It's not the same type of radiation as a nuclear bomb. It's not the same radiation as nuclear radiation. But it's not because it's not the same type of radiation and that one type is giving you cancer one way that the other one is completely safe. Not the same thing as something dangerous doesn't mean it's not dangerous. And the mechanism of harm of non-ionizing radiation has been documented very well in over 1,600 peer-reviewed studies. And especially when you take, so the wireless industry has funded quite a few studies, but when you look at the independently funded studies, the result is insanely clear. But you still have a lot of people out here who don't want to look this fact in the eye. Just like in the 70s, when it was clearly documented that tobacco was dangerous, you would still see doctors on television doing ads for Marlboro saying that they were the safest cigarettes to smoke. I don't know if it was Marlboro or another brand, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were not willing to admit that, smoking was in fact potentially giving them cancer.
Yeah.
And so I think today a lot of people are fighting this up because we love technology. And that's the reason why we created Lambs in the first place, because I freaking love technology and I love my cell phone. Maybe too much sometimes, but so we tried to create a solution that would help people. So that's the first thing that we're getting, and the second thing is people trying to question how the technology works, and saying, well, it's not a closed up area, so how do you block radiation? So first of all, we've tried it in real life situation in laboratories. So we actually have the results that it does block radiation, and that itself should say it all. But the reason why it does is because your body is a natural conductor as well, and so the areas which are your legs and your torso, if we were to take the underwear for instance, are where your body parts is closing off this enclosure altogether, where the bulk of the protection is on the fabric, and then radiation get absorbed progressively by the body, which is also why a kid is more exposed to an adult to the danger of radiation, because it's got a smaller body, so more radiation can go through your brain if you're a kid, and so you get more overall exposure. So that means that if you were to put a cell phone underneath your foot, no, it wouldn't reach your brain, because most of the radiation would be absorbed before it reaches your knee. Or I've never measured this, but that's probably about where as much as exposure as you would get. This is super unscientific what I'm doing right now, but
no, it's a practical application, and I think it sort of speaks to the grand point. I mean, we all have to decide for ourselves how much we want to be exposed, right? We want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want to have fast internet. We want to have speedy connections and access to information in an instant. And we all know that it's not good for us. And we have to find our own ways to rectify that, phone and airplane mode at night, turning off your Wi-Fi router at night when you sleep, spending time grounding to ground yourself, and the products that you've made really elegantly take that into consideration. You're not going to make ponchos, probably. You're not going to make like an EMF blocking poncho, because it's not practical for people's lives.
Yep.
The exposure that we're looking at with 5G coming, like, it's here, and many of us cannot avoid it. And so what can we do? What can we invest in a very small way to help protect us and our families from that exposure? And you guys have found something that's practical and effective, and I think I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really cool product. I think that it's going to be, not to turn this into an infomercial, but it's going to be it's going to be the type of garment, the type of technology that like everybody will have in a couple of years. It will be like, wait a minute, like, what are you wearing? Like, you're not wearing EMF protecting sweatshirts. You're not wearing EMF protecting underwear. Like, will you buffoon? What are you doing? So I think you're way out of ahead of it, and I'm pleased to be able to bring this to people, to give them this information, to know that there are solutions like this out there.
Yeah. You touched a little bit on 5G, and what's super interesting is that cities like Brussels, for instance, or even here in California, Mills Valley, close to San Francisco, which is much more than Brussels, but those cities have banned 5G. They've banned it because they're like, look, like this amount of exposure on human health can't be good. And until you come up with studies, talking to Huawei and the other manufacturers who produce the 5G technology, they were like, until you come up with studies showing me that this level of exposure is okay on the health of my citizens or my inhabitants, we're banning this. And it is still being deployed in most other cities, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And that's one of the reasons why we took action before 5G was a thing. But because if we wait for the government to come up with solutions for us, just like if you were to wait for the government to tell you that cigarettes were dangerous on the packages before you stop smoking, then you can wait too long and your health is going to be significantly impacted. So yeah, we're super excited to bring this to the public. We do believe that this is going to be the garments of the future. And we're also trying to make good in a world where a lot of companies have been taking advantage of people's need and want to protect themselves to sell products that effectively do not work. And that's why we have so much transparency around how our technology works, even though it's proprietary and patented. And I mean, probably the fact that it's patented helps us get to this transparency level as well. But and that's why we're publishing our test results. That's why we're educating people on how what you should be looking out for when you want to protect yourself from radiation, and why we can't use stickers, why cell phone cases literally don't work. I had a friend coming to mine a few days ago and showing me his cell phone case protecting him from radiation. We took a radiation detector and figured out in 2 minutes that A, it was not protecting him from radiation, and that B, actually it was higher when he had the case on. So we're taking all those steps because we're trying to create an environment where people can actually shop confidently, knowing that it's not a brand who's trying to scam them. In a nutshell. And that's been very hard at the beginning, and we're pleased to get to a level of credibility with consumers now that is much higher, and that's pleasing.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan. I think you guys are out way ahead of it. The product is comfortable. We know it's effective. You can look at the test. You can read up. You can educate yourself as to how this stuff works. And I'm really excited because I love being able to provide this information to people. To know that there are products that are aligned with their values and their own protection and how they think about their health and their performance. So, well, this has been fantastic, Arthur. Again, thank you so much for jumping on for round 2, and thank you for being with us today on the Optimal Performance Podcast.
Yeah, that was amazing. Before we drop, you're not asking your usual question?
I'm not. Yeah. Did you rethink it?
No, I did not. I thought my first answer was actually pretty cool.
All right. Well, okay. Well then, if you would please fill in the blank. Everyone would benefit from knowing
your podcast. All right, that was way less natural than the first time we did it, but that was my actual answer to this question. And in a nutshell, the reason is because we all have control over a lot of aspects of our lives. And if you want to become better, if you want to become healthier, if you want to protect yourselves from environmental dangers or like lose weight or sleep better, etc., you're not you have ways around it. You're not doomed because you can't sleep right now. You can take steps that are going to help you sleep. You can take steps that are going to help you lose weight. You can take steps that are going to help you live a healthier, longer, happier life. And that's why I'm glad that podcasts like yours, Sean, exist, and that's awesome what you're doing and sharing this type of information and helping people get to their better selves. So that's my actual answer here.
Thank you, Arthur. Much appreciated, man. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you guys grow in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
And scene. I got to jump. I got to go to the next call.